Hi guys, thanks for tuning in. Big question today is 350cc's enough? So let's find out. Before we go into that one, just take into account at the end of this clip here, there'll be a playlist on the classic 350 and it'll either be the Halcyon Grey, the Red Chrome or the Marsh Grey. And roughly between those three bikes there's about 100 clips I've put together catering for all areas where it was taken out on rough roads, sealed roads, off-road four-wheel drive tracks, how to adjust tappets on them, how to put accessories on the bike, everything you want to know about that particular bike or any of those bikes there, including off-road tyres too. So everything's covered on that bike, and even running in process and, virtually everything you want to know about that bike, because I've had about a bit over 2 years experience on three of those bikes, and if I include the Hunter 350, that'd be 4. So I've had a little bit of experience with the J motor, so that's something for you to look at. There'll be a playlist at the end, and you can click on those and go right into it and sort of hopefully enjoy some of the content I've put together for it. Anyway, for something different, let's do a trip back in time to the 1970s, and we'll work our way from there back to the current ride of today. So if we look back in the 1970s, like three bikes I had spring to mind. One was like a Yamaha 125 twin, so that was naturally a two-stroker, and in those days I sort of favoured the two-stroke, so I bought one of those new, and it wasn't a bad little bike. And for a twin, I actually rode it from where I live in the central tablelands of New South Wales over to Adelaide and back on a long weekend, so that wasn't a bad bit of a ride for a 125 twin, which performed really well out along the road. And after that one I moved up to a Kawasaki 350 triple, which was a fairly little powerhouse of a ride. Had no trouble lifting the front wheel on a Kawasaki 350 triple. And then to top it all off, then I finally bought a new Suzuki 750 GT. That's one in the photo there now with the twin discs. So bought it new for $1,450 at the time and rode it around fairly well. Rode it a little bit too fast. Ended up getting booked a couple of times on that bike by the coffers for speeding, and in the end I sold that several months later. And then, believe it or not, from 73 up to 2012 I had nothing to do with bikes whatsoever and moved solely into cars. So when I went into cars at that stage, I was mainly interested in convertibles, and I bought quite a few convertibles during that period of sort of some are pretty good, some are pretty bad. Also jumped into the classic cars, like in Australia, the Ford Falcon GTs and a few of the other cars like that. Even had a crack at the early model Mustangs too. So I had a fair bit of a run in cars, and I was looking around on car sales, and just by accident something went wrong and bike sales come up too, and they're all owned by the same company. So I don't know, I started looking at the motorbikes and worked my way through it, and there was nothing much that really appealed to me that until I bumped through some Royal Enfields that come up, and the one that first attracted me was a black chrome, and I looked at the price and it was $9,500, and I thought to myself, and that's not much for a motorbike. And I just went in and did a bit of research after that and found it was fuel injected compared to carburetted, and it had electric start and it had a kick start and everything like that. And I thought to myself, well, I might have a crack at one of these, because it's been nearly 40 years since it's been on a motorbike, and whatever you've had in your life, if you've had it once in the early stages, you usually might find that you do go out of it and you may come back years down the track. Yeah, so from the years 2012 up until 2020, I went through quite a few classic 500s, and I had most of the models in those year ranges, including the Dispatch, Pegasus, and also the 500 trials. Now, while we're at it, I mentioned earlier there's going to be a playlist at the end of this clip for classic 350 Reborn owners, or any of the ones with the new J motor. But meanwhile, I've created a playlist for 500 classic owners. Now, it'll be at the end of this clip too, if you want to click on to the playlist. And I've checked it out now, and I've managed to pull together, I think it's 95 clips on classic 500s and bullet 500s. So, there are a couple of the ones, and I think if you're into that sort of bike now, well, there'd be some good stuff there on, how to correct or check your sight class correctly, to make sure you got the right amount of oil in the bikes, oil changes. If you've got a little bit of vibration in foot pegs or that, there's a good trick there, how to virtually eliminate that. I think there's a couple there on running, tuners on it, all different sorts of exhausts. So there's a lot of stuff on 500 more so than what there is on the Classic 350, because I was involved with the 500s for a period of roughly 8 years. So keep that in mind, if that's the way you want to find something out about your 500, that'd be the place to go. And all it is, right at the end of this, a playlist, click on it. Unfortunately for me, as much as I enjoyed riding the 500s, they didn't sort of go well on me. And through the ones I had, a couple of them being bad vibrators, I developed sort of tingling in the hands continuous each time I was out there riding them all the time, and it was causing me a lot of drama. I had to go and see a doctor about it, and the doctor said, the best idea is don't ride the motorbikes, or you're going to have problems with nerve trouble in your hands due to the constant vibration you seem to be picking up on the bike. Keeping that in mind, I wasn't really keen on giving an idea of riding the bikes up, and so I switched over and in between them and bought a couple of other rides. So I went into the CB 500X, but I also found they had a bit of bar vibration there too. And, I swung into a couple of Interceptors, which are really smooth bikes, and I'd say one of the smoothest bikes I had the chance of riding over the past 12 years. And I think I had a crack at a Himalayan and so on. But in the end, I come to the conclusion that if I want to continue riding bikes, it's going to cause me a bit of trouble, nerve trouble to the hands. And I was actually thinking of giving up bikes and going back in the cars, because I did enjoy me time in cars, and I'd been at that stage in bikes around 8 or 9 years. Then all of a sudden I'm there, as usual, swinging around on YouTube, going through different channels, seeing what's up and what isn't. And then in India they started talking about there's a new Classic 350 coming out with they class as a J motor, and it's supposedly fairly smooth. So if we swing back to 2022, once it was announced that these Classic 350 Borns were coming in, I thought I'd put an order in, or pre-order in, and go for a Halcyon Grey. So then a few weeks after that, I decided I'd go for a Marsh Grey too. So just to cover myself 2 bikes. So, to save a little bit of time here you'll see the Marsh Grey in action doing a pretty rough 4-wheel drive track. And it definitely is a 4-wheel drive track once you get down into it. And the best thing about it, you'll see the Marsh Grey run along with stock tyres on. So even though now I am running knobby tyres on the latest red chrome, in those days I used to get more thrill going out there on a totally stock bike, stock tyres, just see how it handled a rough terrain. And I was never ever let down by these Classic 350 Reborn, because they're just that good a bike. Just a bit of trivia for you, but if you're just wondering, what do they call this new model Classic 350 Reborn? Well, the answer is quite simple. When they had the UCEs out, they had a 350 in one of those. Now, they were virtually exactly the same bike, 195 kilos, and the only difference is they were carby. Now, I think they still put out around that 20 horsepower, but I actually had 2 of them. I had a white one and I had a black one. And the 350 in those ones there were really sluggish and vibrating bikes. So there's no comparison if you say, I had a Classic 350 and I don't think I'd waste my money on the 350 Reborn. You'd be totally wrong, because they're 2 totally different bikes. One's a bike and one's a really good bike. And the really good bike is a Classic 350 Reborn, because they're just that far ahead of the old ones. It's just unreal. So hopefully you come to the conclusion that Classic 350 in stock form can handle a bit of rough treatment. Now, I also tested at the same time with a vibration test on it, just to see what it was like at that line. So I'll be quiet on this one. You can have a quick look at it, and I'll discuss it further after I show the clip. Well, guys, what do you think of that one? I thought that was fairly impressive how smooth this classic 350 Reborn motor is, using 3 containers of water on it and giving it a slight rev, and it'd be impossible with motorbikes. It'd just toss the water everywhere. So apart from that, we'll swing on to the other one now, and I'll just show you what an extract from one of my clips is how long it takes for the oil to warm up in one of. Yeah, so here's something you might find interesting, and I found this with the 350 and 500s, and it goes to how long it takes the motor to warm up. So from a 2-minute idle from a cold start, you get out there, ride it around, and I found that if I was doing an oil change, if I went out, ran it at 80 kilometres an hour after that one, and ran it for approximately 30 kilometres or 20 minutes of riding, I could bring the bike back, and the oil would only be a toss-up between cold and warm. So there's, it takes a fair while for these motors to warm right up into full operating temperature. And that wasn't just a one-off, that was on several of the bikes I used in the 350 and 500s, and they all behaved the same way. And while we're at it, we like to talk the liquid to keep the bike running well as far as the oil goes. I always used Penrite 10-50, and that's the Penrite HPR Gas 10. So that was all it was, semi-synthetic in that line, and I never ever used any fully synthetics in these, and I found it worked pretty well. Yeah, so that's a bit of food for thought. Who would think you could get onto a bike on around 15 degrees Celsius from a cold start, get out, ride the bike for 20 minutes, come back, do an oil change, and I've tried this on the current UCE 350s too, and then find out that the oil is still just cold to warm. So it gives you an idea how long it takes to warm up. Now this clip here I'm showing you where I'm going down this hill. In the old days, or you look around the 1970s, this was really a hot spot for trucks coming down here, the old trucks coming down and losing their brakes there and having burnouts and then going straight down into the drink. I must admit it's no powerhouse, and most people do mention 20 horsepower is not enough and they need more. But what I've found over the period of time, the last couple of years in my case, is you adapt to the power and you get used to riding with what you've got, 20 horsepower, make the most of it. And sure, I can't get out there and go high speed along any of the really good roads around here if you want to maintain speed or get caught up in the hills. But on the back roads or on the dirt roads or on the tracks I go on, well, I'm virtually riding, you could say, a 1000cc bike, because if I had one of those, I couldn't go any faster anyway. I'd end up wiped out or land on the side of the ditch or down on the ground with it or some silly thing like that. So for the type of riding I do, I still think it's a perfect bike to get out there and enjoy yourself, and it's a really good, reliable bike, which a lot of bikes out now, you can't really say they're reliable. Some of them are, but some aren't. But for the outlay you put out on this bike, 8,000 right away, I think you get really good value for money. It's a good nostalgia ride. It's a bike that you'll never get sick of looking back and saying, gee, that's a nice bike to be on. Well, that's providing you pick the right colour. And, I think you'll get a bike where people will come up and want to talk to you about it and tell you their stories too, which happens, to some people quite regularly. Not so much for me because I'm a lone rider, so I don't go out of my way to attract attention when I'm riding. I just get on it, ride it out there and then give it a workout and a scrub. But overall, I hope you found this interesting. If so, give it a like if you do, and a thumbs up would be appreciated. And like I said, if you've got a 350 Reborn, there's roughly 100 clips there. You can go back and look through any of those, anything you want to know. If you've got a classic 500, there's also roughly 100 clips there, because overall I've put up something like 750 clips on something, like 70 rides I've been on. So, there's plenty there to look at if you want to go to trouble into those playlists and check it out. So once again, thanks for tuning in, taking a look, and this one's done and dusted.